Oh, okay. So this is game one of the finals for the COVID-19 Cup with Abyss playing white and Fwib playing black. This will be a 6-game series, if I'm not mistaken, and this is the first one. And we've seen so far the pretty standard opening with the capstones played, but now we've got things breaking up and different little pockets branching up around the board. Um, it looks like black and white are about even right now in positioning. White might have a slight advantage, but black looks to be a little bit more spread out and has more options.
Yeah. So the idea with black set up there is that they can come over and then they can come over to d4 and then move down to d3 and essentially cut off white's threat, make a threat of their own. On the other hand, by placing the cap there, white can move over to c3 and kind of negate that threat. So very likely, because of white's capstone placement there, we're less likely to see black's cap come down to d3, I think, than we would otherwise.
And white's capstone is in a good spot because no matter how captures go or whatnot, there's always going to be an opportunity for white's capstone to move on top of either c3 or b4. So it was a good capstone placement, can cut off either the vertical or horizontal threats.
Here, I would probably just fill in at e4 to stop black from getting anything direct.
4 or b5 or a5. I like a5 a lot here because then you got something like the capstone moving over to c3 and being able to throw up onto d5 for a threat.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's defensive and offensive at the same time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be sneaky enough that you miss it. I mean, we've seen that before with Abyss in his games with No Hat Coder. No Hat Coder missing some pretty obvious threats that just didn't quite catch him, and so that can happen to the best of the players.
Well, exactly, and the time control here is fairly long, but not so. But there's not enough. It's still short enough that people miss things quite a bit.
And we did see that with Abyss versus Sime, where Sime ran out of time on both games they played.
Yes. And
looks like black's going for that horizontal threat right now.
So white did what you said, and then black. Essentially, if white doesn't go there, then black should, because now, if black moves to b4 to cut it off, white can play in b3 and has a threat going. Whereas if white moves up to c4, it doesn't do anything immediately.
Yeah, black is looking pretty good right now.
Yeah. On the other hand, white could just play f5 or e6 and just make a direct threat, but probably wants to wait because he's
if black plays a4 or f4, white won't be able to do that because he'll have to worry about cutting off those threats.
Yeah, that's true. And because the flat under white's cap is a black flat, he can't throw the cap to set it up because that wouldn't do anything about the threat immediately. So we might just have to move to c3 to c4, which is probably actually fine.
Oh, looks like black's going defensive.
Either he's going defensive or he wants to have threats in both directions.
I mean, he already kind of does have that with his capstone as sort of the anchor point. So he's got it coming up from C to D to E going north and south. And then he's got that on the 4 line for the horizontal threat. So he's kind of got that already, but I like that he's playing this defensive move. He's playing the long game here. And both players are taking quite a bit of time to make their moves. They're really thinking of several moves ahead.
Well, Abyss is taking quite a bit of time. Fwib is actually currently above his starting 15 minutes. So
he's still taking a bit of time.
Yeah. The thing about this position, though, is if white plays f5 now, or e6 equivalently, then black can move c5 over and simultaneously cut off the threat and get something substantial of his own. So I don't think making that direct threat for white is a good move at the moment.
But if white makes that move, then black is going to make that first capture move. So he's forcing that first flat capture. He's not doing the flat capture. He's going for capture.
I guess that very, very much cuts it off, but that's a worse placement for his cap, I think. Because
I agree.
Now white probably just plays d4 is the most obvious move. Because you want to have, in this stage of the game, you want to just get flat stones played so that you have prisoners for later. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
But the thing is that white has nothing direct, so no matter if there's no permutations where one capture is a road threat.
And white is definitely on the defensive now.
Yeah.
Black now has the momentum and has more options going for him.
Exactly. Well, yeah. On the flip side, black does have these concrete threats that will force captures in response. The one thing to bear in mind is that if white shuts down black's threats, then they might be able to get total control of the 1 and 2 rows. Because if white played, for example, e2, all of a sudden they're looking pretty good on the bottom half of the board.
Yeah, but it would be ignoring the potential threats.
Yeah, but black's cap is so far away. So in other words, they have to make sure black doesn't win, but by doing that, all of a sudden, black has no pieces down here. His capstone is on the other side of the board, and it could become brutal very quickly.
It is true, and it looks like that's kind of what white is doing right now. And I'm surprised that fwib is taking this approach on b6. That was not what I expected at all, but I like the move.
The problem with just playing a4 and making that threat there was that white would just move his cap up to c4 and just cut off everything. In this position, I think white might want to make the defensive move of e6, because if black gets a flat on e6, then all of a sudden he has threats by moving his cap over. Whereas if white gets a flat stone there, then he kind of creates that sharp diagonal that is pretty hard to overcome, if that makes sense.
I was also thinking c6. c6 would be a defensive move, maybe a wall at c6 to really just shut everything down.
Yeah. But the thing about c6 is there are other options, right? On that side of the board, black can also go through a4 and b5, whereas on the e and f, in order to capitalize on, assuming that white at some point moves his cap up, then black pretty much has to have a road go through e5, which it might be the point that white wants to pinch off. If that.
Yeah, I do like black's positioning right now. I mean, at first glance on the board, it looks like white's doing pretty well, but black's positioning is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Got a lot of options, and that's why Abyss is taking so much time, because he realizes that he's fallen into some traps right now. He's gonna have to dig his way out.
It's possible that he could wait one more move, because if he played that.
There's that wall at c6.
If he and that there was a possibility if he decided that e5, e6, and c6 were equally fine, then he could have just done a different move, say b3, and let black choose which to go in, and then put a wall on the other. But he decided that getting a wall there was very important.
Yeah, and I think here's where, All right, he's working on now a vertical threat while at the same time cutting off that horizontal threat stemming from the capstone along the 1, 2, 3 file.
So essentially, I think Fwib has decided he's not going to win immediately, and so he wants to fill out the board some more. He wants to make sure he has threats going in both directions, and he wants to make sure that white doesn't get complete domination on the 1 and 2 rows.
He could also be drawing attention away from the fact that he has this horizontal threat that he could make at any time.
Yeah.
And so if he starts building vertically and then takes one off to the side, for example, his next move, let's say it's b2, and then he places it a2, then Abyss might not see that's attack threat.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, if he places at b2 right now, that's tack. If he places at a3, that's also tack, or a4, that's also tack.
Yeah, exactly.
So he is building for it.
On the other hand, Abyss moving his cap to c3 kind of cuts everything off.
Yeah, Abyss moving his cap to c3. You
C4,
mean c4?
C4, yeah. I think that'll probably happen at some point. But it's also possible that Fwib sees that and he's trying to maneuver so that that's not such a powerful move. Because if he gets a threat going that's just entirely on the B file, then all of a sudden C4 becomes kind of less important.
Mm-hmm.
Abyss is really in characteristic manner. Abyss is taking plenty of time.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what he'll do here. Fwib is playing much quicker. I had the opportunity to play against Fwib in the original in the group round, and he mopped the floor with me. I missed all of his tack threats, and he just stomped me. So it's good to see that he's in the finals here, so I can say at least that I lost to somebody in the finals.
Well, I remember in the US TAC Open last year, I was really proud of myself because I beat Rabbit Boy and Salt and Pepper, and then Fwib just crushed me.
Yeah, he does have a tendency to crush people, so you don't get to see him play too often lately, but he does bring his A game when he does play.
Yeah, I can see Abyss playing just a flat on B2 to try to say no, stick to the horizontal threats. That's enough to deal with.
If he plays at B2 and black plays at A3, it would look like he was continuing that vertical threat down and could potentially blindside him.
I think that the biggest weakness in White's position is I can do that. E4. There's really no way of connecting that for the vertical threat.
Yeah.
So he just thought he thinks he has an entire move to waste, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Which is possible, I guess. So now
there's that threat.
Now he brings his cap over to c4.
Yeah, it's got to be the move that he makes.
Which is not quite a threat of his own.
No, it falls short because of the positioning the black has around there.
Yeah, White has all of these diagonals that he can't quite fill in. which is not a pleasant thing. You feel like you have this feeling you're always like you always have a threat with you have to play 2 moves in a row kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything else? I guess no. Is there anything?
Abyss has a couple options here, but his best option is probably moving that capstone to c4.
Yeah. Is there anything else that makes any sense? I guess d4 to e4.
Yeah, I was just looking at that option because that opens up possibilities for potential vertical threats down the road.
So we did do that. Now, is there any reason black? Oh, I guess now if black fills in d4, which is the obvious move,
It's another threat.
then Abyss can move onto his own. Nope, never mind. Because after black plays d4, then he also has attack from moving
Correct.
b6 down to b5, which is or
c5 down to c4.
So I'm not convinced by that move. Maybe he can't move his wall over. This is getting close to Tinue.
I think there's plenty of other options he has to break it up.
Yeah, he might have, but I'm thinking he might have to like take on f4 or something.
I get b5 to
or a5.
5 to c5.
b5 to c5.
Cuts out the threat and makes his own tack threat.
Yeah, but then black just takes with his cap, right?
Okay.
Oh, because now if black recaptures with a flat, he can't move in both directions is the key. But if it's always good to do that, to do a flat on flat capture like that in the middle of a line of pieces, so that then later they can't. In other words, that stack, fwib stack on e5 is pretending that it's covering both d4 and f4. Sorry, e4 is pretending that it's covering both d4 and f4, but in reality, it can only move in one of the directions.
If fwib's in a good spot here, I think his best bet is to a capture war over d4. And then if the capstone comes down from black, then he can move his white capstone up to c4 to really cut things off. But he will lose some flats in the process, and he will lose positioning. But he will have stopped this threat that is very strong.
Yeah, I wonder if his thinking at the moment is to try to get build-ups so that he can just play a wall in the middle of things. But
could be it.
I'm not seeing a great. The problem is that black has so many options of where to go.
There's that capture over onto c5.
Yeah, I assume the cap comes over because that's a threat. And so Abyss could play c3 or 2c3 up to c4.
Mm-hmm.
And that blocks your threat, and then that allows next move he can throw his cap over to e5 and pick up those flats, and then he's all of a sudden looking very good. And then so if white's able to throw his cap over to e5, he's all of a sudden looking very, very good on the right side of the board.
Plays d5, I think, is the move that he's going to play.
Yeah, but Abyss can leave white stone behind on d4, so he can still do the throw.
That is true, yeah.
On the other hand, then we get this interesting situation where black has very scary threats on ABC, and white has very scary threats on DEF.
And I think fwib is seeing that now. He probably saw that D5 was his first move to make, but seeing that capstone have the power to jump over there and cover up on D4 and E4 and make all those potential threats is probably slowing his roll on that path.
Yeah, actually, an interesting idea here is for fwib to play B5 because it makes the same horizontal threat, but then if white throws his cap over, that's not immediately attack, and black can play B2, and all of a sudden he gets to attack threats first in this like partitioned board world, which is a thing to think about.
Yeah, I think B5 is a good move here. It gives the horizontal threat and also starts building more towards the vertical.
Yeah, exactly. But also, fwib has 10 extra minutes on the clock, so he can take all the time in the world to think about this position. So I expect he is calculating out as far as he can.
See, this is why I play Intuition Bot. It only thinks one move ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think for the best players, a big part of it is knowing when to play on intuition and when to actually calculate, because there's not enough time to calculate deeply on every move. Oh, fwib moved. Oh, so he went. Nah, I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like the move on B2.
Oh, I guess.
But I guess he can. Yeah, I guess I do like it.
The logic is that his cap is overlooking B5, so he can if he needs B5 to finish a road, then he can smash a wall even. So yeah, and white is being defensive.
I think here we can expect A1 from fwib.
Well, another option is to do E4 down 1-2. Just spread it out, and no great positioning, but then that all of a sudden white has to spend a lot of effort if he wants to mop up the mess.
I don't think he's going to do that because he wants to keep that horizontal threat alive to keep that capstone more or less pinned.
Yeah.
Because what he's doing here is he's building this vertical threat on B and A, and he knows that eventually that capstone's probably going to have to come over and cover up on B4 and maybe A4. And when that happens, then fwib can focus on building that horizontal threat because he's got that capstone out of the way, it's out of the business, and he can focus on really moving that around.
He did my move.
Oh, he did that. Interesting.
So an important
thing
in
this capture war on E2, then it takes that on E2, that big stack of white prisoners.
Yeah. But where does white want to go with it? I guess white has two options. So if white captures... Yeah, so if white captures first with F2, first F2 over, then black has nowhere good to place a wall because white can just throw in. Because
I think D2 would be eventually the good place to place a wall.
Yeah.
Because it would keep him from covering up that black that black vertical road threat,
So
and also be able to stop it when he throws it upwards.
Yeah, Abyss opted not to start capturing. So I think what his idea is by playing, essentially when he does capture E2, he wants to throw it up to E3, E4 with maximal impact, and so I think he wants to have that ready to make a threat.
Although if fwib does play E1 here, then he stops that capture war from being an automatic win for him.
Yeah.
And it starts building towards another vertical threat.
Yeah, that's true.
Granted, fwib, what Abyss just did here is he allowed his next move to be attack threat by placing it E5, because what he can do now is he can either throw his capstone over or place it D1. That'll give him attack threat on the vertical, going from all the way from F6 down to D1.
Yeah. Oh, and the thing to note, so if he throws over to E4 with tack, then Abyss blocks the tack. Okay, that is also that's a sneaky tack, only slightly sneaky, but
And fwib definitely saw it.
yeah. But also black is still +3 on flats, and given that there's 3 Comey, that's a big lead. So basically, white has to get a road, or something dramatic has to change. Yeah. So if black recaptures and white recaptures, then where would black? I guess black would play a wall on E3, and then white would be throwing.
I like the wall better on D2, to be honest.
Well, so my thinking is if he plays a wall, because see now white basically has to throw. He can get to D2, C2, B2. But the key here is then that now black has a wall to move from D1 to D2 and kind of just mop up everything that white left behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still quite like black here.
Yeah. Abyss is probably thinking of a way that he can make a move that doesn't end up spreading that stack out on E2 so he can take fwib off guard. But now he does have attack threat here by throwing that capstone over onto D4 and E4.
Yeah. But I assume the first instinct is to just go D2 up because it blocks the attack
D1
threat.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, D1 up because it blocks the attack threat and it allows you to move over and scrape off the flats on A2 and B2.
That stops the attack threat. It also stops the potential attack threat on the 2 file.
Or you can do that.
Okay, it also stops it. But placing it C3 now. Oh no, that doesn't start the attack threat over.
No.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, that's attack threat.
Well, what he's really doing is he's putting flats on the board and making fwib capture them with walls. Oh,
was that intentional?
That can't have been intentional. Okay, yeah, it was undone because it was an unintentional move.
Yeah, it was a misclick.
we'll
But
see him
a
toss
thing,
that wall
a
over
thing
to
to know,
B2.
a thing to note is that white still has his capstone on C3, so if he is ready to cut off, not C3, C4, so he's ready to cut off A4, B4, which means that he can it's probably position, not for flat count, but positionally it's probably okay to let black recover the flats on A2 and B2 and just focus on getting a threat over on the E and F ranks.
He is building towards that with that move on E3.
Yeah.
He'll have tack threat once he puts a flat on E1. And then one of those walls will probably have to move over again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so black is recovering his flats, but now that's a tack threat. And the wall has to move over. Oh, but a thing to note now is that the stack on the wall on B2 can reach all the way over to E2, leaving behind only black stones.
Sure can. But I don't think that's going to happen. We might be seeing that wall do some maneuvering in order to get that vertical threat on AB to work again.
Yeah. So I assume Abyss just keeps playing. Oh, it's Flip's turn. Yeah. So he has to decide does he want to be defensive and play D3 or F3, or is he just gonna keep working on his road threat on A and B?
I think would be an interesting move here would be to leave 2 black flats on B2 and to move that wall over to A2.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting move. Not what he
Or he can
opted
do
for.
that. Okay, so he's just road threading. Because the key is he can just move by doing it that way. Then if white recaptures on B2, then he can go back and scam it off again. But white. So white can shut down the threat with his capstone, but the problem is that's moving in the opposite direction than he really wants to.
Mm-hmm.
So we might.
I like putting on D5 for black because
Yeah.
that gives him the opportunity to make that threat vertically if the capstone moves over to the left.
Probably white plays on B5 because, or do
The
that.
capstone goes
so
over.
just proactive. Okay.
Now, if he goes D5, then that's not a tack threat, but it's building towards one.
Yeah. So by the way,
there is potential there. If he moves that capstone down to B2, that wall can't interrupt that road. So there's going to have to be something going on from that 2 file if the capstone moves down. That big defensive block of that wall just gets eliminated there.
But he wants to already have, before he does that, he wants to already have most of a threat going because, well, I guess it's not easy for black to recover there because the wall on E3 is pinned.
Okay, now that the wall is moved out of the way, the capstone can't capture that stack full of white flats. He is building towards that 2 file threat though, because he has that double stack on C2. I wonder what you'd probably do that move over there on from C2 over to B2 if black were to play on B5.
Yeah.
Moves the wall up. That was a smart move.
Yeah, because he recovers the flat again. Also, quick note, they're even on flats again. So Black is still ahead because of Comey, but Abyss has recovered some ground in that area.
No, Abyss wants to set up a way that he can make a threat with his capstone for that 2 file, but also have the capstone in position to crush that wall on E3.
Yeah, so by playing D3, he just makes an immediate attack threat, which is rarely a bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Another thing to note is that if Abyss goes on A1, then by leaving some blacks behind, he can throw his cap to A1 and have a road going through to B1 and have another white flat on B2, which could be slightly sneaky. So he's kind of his cap is fairly well positioned because he can throw it in both directions usefully.
Abyss has really sort of rescued his earlier position. He's got a pretty solid spot right now.
Yeah.
Before he was treading water and he was going under, but now he's made back a lot of ground.
I feel like at this point it's anyone's game.
Yeah, it is. I think I'd give a slight advantage to Abyss here.
Yeah. I mean, I assume Abyss just keeps filling in flat stones as long as he can.
I'm guessing Abyss plays at E3 here.
Yeah.
Renews that attack threat.
Or
no, he doesn't. Okay.
Oh, because that's attack threat 2 ways. I guess the other one would that's attack threat from playing E3 or from throwing his cap. So another wall from Fwib doesn't accomplish anything here, which is always good because Fwib can afford to play another wall or 2.
Now he has to move that wall over or
so he moved the wall over. Okay, now he could play another wall on E3.
Mm-hmm.
Which is very defensive, but it might be necessary because White just has complete domination. Yeah. So now, does White play F3 to try to keep things alive, or does Abyss play on C4 to try to make a threat in the other direction? And now White is +1 flat. An important thing to note is that White has fewer reserves left, so if we get to a close flat end game, White has the advantage of deciding when the game ends.
I'm interested in seeing. So Abyss won't be able to make a attack threat on his next turn. We might see Fwib place at A3 for his own attack threat.
Yeah.
Under 2 minutes, he's been going up and down on the time lately. He's been kind of around 2 to 3 minutes for the past few turns.
Yeah, it's kind of his comfort zone. So Abyss typically uses all of his initial time at the beginning of the game, and then he just plays most of the game on the increment. Which is why when Abyss is low on time, it's less concerning that when anyone else is low on time.
Let's see, we get placed on B5. Okay. Okay.
So he's trying for a horizontal threat.
Mm-hmm. That he is. Now I wonder if Fwib will go for the A3 or if he'll go for a different direction.
Yeah. The thing about A3 is it's just sneaky enough that it's possible that Abyss could miss it. Not unlikely, but possible.
Yeah, I think there would be very little chance of that. But by placing it B5, it eliminates the possibility that Fwib could run down time for Abyss until he's really low, and then play that move to try to catch him off guard. Abyss probably has that option flagged in his head,
So-
waiting for it to come up.
Let's say Fwib does play A3. How does Abyss block it?
Probably throws the capstone down. That's my best bet.
Yeah. Yeah, and they both.
Or he moves A5 to A4.
Oh yeah, that's good because that keeps the horizontal threat going.
He
And
could also place at D5 here, Fwib could, to make that other tack threat.
Yeah. But one thing about the A5 down move is that Fwib could throw his cap up, throw his wall from A2 up to take it off, and White can't crush the wall because that would be
Could
losing.
open for a win, yeah.
Now
I think I like B5 here better than A3 because it's also a defensive move. It's working against that horizontal threat that that Abyss is working towards. Making a attack threat that may or may not be seen. It's also a much sneakier attack threat, I think, than placing at A3.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's more. Huh?
That was very unusual
Much
move.
more defensive than I was expecting. I have
something, or
I have nothing to say.
it feels almost like he's trying to bait move, the capstone to move, so he can capture that stack on D3.
Yeah.
Don't know what he wants to do with that.
Okay, this just changed a lot.
Abyss is in a much better position now because of that wall movement. I think that move on 5 was definitely the wrong move. I think that was a mistake because I can't see what's supposed to happen there.
Yeah, because I feel like in this new position, Black just his just threats aren't as good.
Yeah, his threats are gone now.
Yeah, and White has attack threat.
Mm-hmm.
I assume Black cuts it off with a flat. Oh.
Flat or a wall. Fwib does have 3 walls in play to Abyss's 1.
And whose turn is it? It is Black's.
It's Abyss's turn.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm having issues counting, but I think the Black is still +2 flats. So still winning the Comey still winning a flat game by 1. White is still winning a flat game by 1. No. White is +2, so Black is still winning a flat game by 1. Sorry.
Well, it's 12-9 right now.
Yeah.
If Fwib were to place one here, which he can't because he would lose, then it would be.
So after this move, well, So yeah, it's one in black's favor, but probably. Well, I guess black might do a flat on flat capture, or he might. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So it's still +1 black.
I'm seeing very few ways that black can come out of this ahead.
Yeah. And also white is.
Now has attack threat that requires capture. It won't be able to keep building on that flats.
Yeah.
Put himself behind on flats, and Abyss just needs to go with that.
But yeah, the problem is that if fwib gives up one more flat, then white just has to run out and he'll win by 1 point because he's white. So I think that's why fwib is capturing with flat on flats instead of playing walls. Because if he played a wall, he would shut down the threat better, but then I think he would just lose on flats, is basically what I'm saying. I think white just keeps playing flats. Probably d6.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, you got d6. So black really wants to recover a captive so that he can afford to play a wall.
Can't move that capstone up to crush a wall if the wall comes over and recaptures, because then it would leave that D3 stack open.
Yeah.
I think by moving that wall up, I think he's planning on doing that. I think he's planning on a capture war over the C5 piece, so that he can do that, give up that huge stack, and then hopefully come ahead on something. But I don't know why he would want to give up that huge stack unless he has a plan for it.
Yeah.
That is a formidable stack. Ooh, and it almost looks like Abyss is planning for that eventuality as well.
And so a thing to note here: if fwib were to play a flat and then Abyss were to play his last flat, it would be a tie. So, in other words, yeah, black they're essentially tied on flats.
Well, it's 9-12. So yeah, 13 if they both place flats here, which would give it a draw. Because of the 3 Comey, adding 3 extra flats to black's score in the event of a
But
count.
what this means is that fwib cannot even momentarily so fwib can't make a move that puts him down 1 flat, because then white wins immediately, whereas white can temporarily go down on flats if it allows him to go back up.
And honestly, I mean, white already has moves to put himself ahead with flats. With C2, he can move over and capture onto B1 for an extra flat count there.
Oh yeah, that might just be winning. Does black have anything? Oh no, if he does that, then black moves his wall over and leaves back, and he gets a +2. And then white could crush the wall, but that would be terrifying. Because then black would throw his 2 open ones to b4 and b5.
I think we're about to see some fun moves, unless wait, really, what happened here?
Yeah, this is where being down to 1 minute is painful because it's really hard to count that fast.
Yeah, it's 9-11 right now. If he placed his flat, it'd be 9-12. It'd be a draw. I'm sure Fwib and Abyss are both acutely aware of that fact.
Mm-hmm. So is there any other way that Abyss can pick up a...
I think that Fwib would be hesitant. Ooh.
Okay, that's still
Interesting move.
+1. But that gives up his best resource.
He might.
But if he crushes the wall, then black can't. Then he has...
Yeah, he's in a good spot here. Crushing that wall is what he wants to do. And Fwib is going to have to move it, I think. Yep. He's going to have to throw his wall.
And he had to throw it like that because he had to have a +1 flat move or else he lost.
Yep.
But now Abyss is in the funny situation where he'd love to just play a flat on a2 and make a threat, but okay, there's a threat, but he can't play his last flat or else it's a draw, and he wants to win. Okay, but what does black do here? I guess he move the cap down.
That's what I'm thinking. The cap down, yeah, moving the cap down does solve that. But his capstone is higher. Yeah, if he moves the cap down, I think that's an eventual win for Abyss. Because he'll be thrashing.
Yeah, but Abyss doesn't have any flats to play. So if Fwib just eats up flats with his capstone, there's no road threat.
That's true.
Right, that's a really strange situation because now the only reason there's no road threat is because there's only one flat left. So
10
now,
on flats.
what?
To 10 on flats.
Yeah.
Okay. What
That's
is going on?
Nothing's been done that will change the flat situation. The problem is, so a thing to note is that if black plays a flat on A1, A2, B1, or B2, then white can uncover his captive and cover it up and get +1. So Fwib needs to be aware of that. The problem is that white just doesn't have any resources to uncover. I guess the best bet is D5, but the problem is that Fwib has maneuvered his wall over next to it, so white can't really uncover that.
Abyss is down to 15 seconds. He's got to think quickly for all of his extra moves.
Or just play the flat.
He might end up losing this.
So he's trying to uncover. He's trying to go for that resource. Now Fwib does that, and Fwib can put. Yeah. So that's a draw, I think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 7 to 10. Yep, that's a draw.
So the first game is drawn. So the key thing in the last two moves there is Abyss moved D4 down, and the idea was that if Fwib missed what was happening, then on his next turn, Abyss could uncover his captive, get +2 flats, and then win the following turn. However, Fwib did see the threat, and so he recaptured with his wall, and then he was threatening to uncover and get +2 flats. And because then he was threatening to win, and so Abyss took the draw.
Yep. It's probably a smart play. When he was down to 1 flat there, it made making any threats really, really difficult for him.
The incredible thing is, even down to the wire with almost no time left, none of them slipped up. Neither of them slipped up.
Abyss able to keep track of flats when he had 15 seconds on the clock. That's
pretty impressive.
It's like they're going to be taking a 10 to 15 minute break.
Yeah.
And we'll come on back when they come back for game number 2.
Excellent. So it looks like we will